Okay, sorry. I don't know why I put it back there. Like,
Hello, everybody.
Howdy.
Welcome to Millennial Homesteader.
Yeah, so Audrey and I share our financial independence journey through homesteading. And this is episode 3, right?
Of Farm to Hearts.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, so this is super exciting because we kind of feel like we're getting towards the end, but we're not sure yet, but those videos are going to keep coming. So essentially in the first episode, we spoke about why do you want to do homesteading? And then what is the reason? You really needed to think of the reasons. How is it going to benefit you? Is it something that is good for your lifestyle, for your family and so forth? And then in episode 2, we then spoke about the types of homesteads that you can actually get into. So you've chosen your homestead and you know that you really want to do this, and then now the big question we always get asked: how much does it cost to set up this homestead? So can you really know?
I mean, it's really hard to know how much it really costs, right? It's like asking how long really is a piece of string, right? So depending on your homestead, right, it could be anyway, it could be hundreds of millions, it could be much, much less than that, but it's based on what you want to really achieve and also the budget that you have.
Absolutely. Yeah. So today we are going to talk about what are some of the things that you need to focus on or to think about when you start thinking about setting up your homestead. This is going to differ with everyone, but we are going to talk about our experiences, what we know about setting up a homestead, and obviously the necessities. So all the extra things that you're going to add on your homestead, they are honestly just extra. The things we're going to touch on are actually the things that you really need to be on your homestead, to get started on your homestead. Then you don't have to think about too many things.
Yes. And so we're not going to also go too much into the monies, spending about monies and what this costs and what this costs, because again, it really depends, right? But what is really important is for you to know, the things you should be considering, because what will happen is that you will basically decide you want to go into homesteading, and then you will get there and then start to realize that there are so many other things you didn't consider. And now the budget that you had is now 4 times or 5 times or much more than that. So this is really what we want to do. But the first thing, right, is the land, right? So obviously you want to do homesteading, you really need a place to homestead. So let's start with the option of working with a blank piece, of land, like a blank, space.
Blank canvas. So this is the type of land when we're talking about just a blank canvas. Obviously we're talking about there's no structure, there's no water, there's no electricity. So what are some of the costs that are associated with that? Okay,
so now this one is pretty much, like everyone really wants to go this route, or many people really like this route. Is basically I get a piece of land and I can really do whatever I want to do with it, I can work around it and so on. But now the thing is that a lot of people will want to go the route of getting it financed, because maybe they don't necessarily have the money to put out 500,000 or 600,000, whatever the amount is, right, of getting the land. So they're going to say, well, I'm going to go to the bank or a financer and they're going to help me go through this process. But now the problem is that with this route, if there is no structure, if there is no electricity or water or a combination of the the 3, the bank will ask for that, and then they will say, well, but obviously there is no structure, so that means you're going to be living somewhere else. So we can't give you the full bond. So now that means that you need to have at least 60 to 80% of the amount of the land that you'd want to buy. So the bank is probably going to give you about 20 to 40%. So just have that extra money, because it's not extra money, that's the money you need to buy your land. So if the bank says they're going to give you 10%, then you need to have the 90%. So just know that those costs are going to be there. But then when you get a bond, there are also costs associated with that bond. What are they? So we have transfer fees, right? So this is basically the cost of moving the deed from someone else's name, because you probably are going to go and get land that was owned by someone. They're going to have to transfer that. And then there will also be bond registration fees, because then the bank is going to say, well, we have our lawyers, we have our people who are basically, doing all this work for you. They're going to go and register it, in the government and do all this work for you. So there's substantial costs that are also associated with that. Now, what we ended up finding is that, when we add all those costs together, they're about 8% of the value of your land. So essentially, we're just going to put something on the screen here that is going to highlight exactly what you might pay. So for example, here, in most cases,
buying a 1 hectare farm is going to cost you around 485,000, right? And then your when we talk about once-off costs, these are the costs we're talking about. That 40,335 that you're seeing there, that is constituting of your bond registration, which is 22,000, then property transfer, which is 17,000. This is obviously depending on the fact that the interest rate is still 11.75%, and you are paying for it for 20 years. But obviously those costs, guys, please keep in mind they're going to be very different. They're going to be dependent on the property getting, on the interest fees and all the other things. Just keep that in mind. And these calculators, you're going to find them on any website that where you are searching for the property. So just keep that in mind. Check for those things. Ask how much you're going to pay. If you with this calculator, you're going to start to realize that if you buy a property for 1 million, chances are you're going to pay about 70 to 80,000 of once-off costs. So these are costs that are not going to come from your bank. And please don't take a personal loan for those costs. Just try and save up the money so that you have that money ready, because a personal loan is going to cost you at least 22% to 27% for 5-year loan. Try to avoid those costs.
So fortunately, right, there are ways you can somehow get around it. So that bond registration, if you decide I don't want to go through the bank, right, I want to just pay it in cash, no bond registration for you. If you have to move the deed, you will still have to pay for that deed transferal, just to move it in your name. However, if maybe it's a completely new establishment, right, and then there was no deed before, then maybe you don't necessarily have to worry about that. So there is a possibility where you don't pay either, right? Like if you buy in cash and it's completely new establishment without a previous deed, then maybe, you can basically just get away without paying all of those.
Exactly.
But what is really important is that if you do have to pay them, that is usually going to be in cash. So the amount that Audrey was saying, that 40,000 rands there, right, you basically want to get the bank to finance you, you have to have that 40,000 rand available in your pocket. Like they're going to want you to transfer it to the lawyers and see the proof of that, and then transfer it to your bank basically to get that kind of sorted out. There are cases where it is included in your mortgage, but that's a little bit more rare, especially if you're going to be a first-time buyer. So that's the other thing, right? You just might be thinking of just financing it, but there are costs associated with it, and they need to be upfront.
Absolutely. So now let's get to what are the costs associated now with this land. You have gotten approved, or you've bought your land cash. Congrats. That is exciting. It's amazing here, because you get to the land and you're like, oh my goodness, this belongs to me, this is ours, it's now yours. So now what do you need to do first?
Well, okay, you're gonna look across and you're gonna find a bunch of trees, a bunch of foliage, a bunch of stuff along the way, and then you're gonna be like, well, I need to get rid of all of that. Right? So all of that grass, or at least because I now want to start putting structures or whatever I want to do around my land, I have to clear out that space. So that means you're going to have to call someone to get a TLB or something of that, or maybe pay people to come and mow down things and cut things down. And now this starts becoming very expensive.
Exactly. So just keep those costs in mind. If you are going to have to hire people to come remove trees or remove rocks, remove all the other things, that's going to be a cost. And if you buy outside of completely outside of the city, this is land that is outside of the city, then there are costs of just getting those people to that call-out fee.
It's gonna be
crazy as well. And if you want to throw away rubble, that's also going to cost you money if you're not going to keep the stuff on your land. But think about the cost of clearing the land. But if you have already gotten land that is already cleared, then kudos to you.
Congrats. Then also there are some people who decide to get tribal land, right? So close to where they're from or where their parents are from. And then in many cases like this, it's very easy to buy the land in cash because it's relatively affordable. But now, in places like that, what happens is that, some chief or, a person of authority in the area just says, okay, this is your land. And then, great, after paying a very small fee. But now, if you don't fence that area around
it's not yours anymore.
Right? You're going to wake up one day and then you're going to decide, well, I want to go and, walk on my land, and you're going to find other people have been building on your own land. And, this is a place where the deeds is not really managed very well.
Yeah.
So now, if you get tribal land, one of the first things you're going to actually have to do is fence it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And also with the fencing situation, you could realize that even with your land that is not tribal land, you might need to quickly fence it because maybe you want to start keeping items around your property, or you want to start you don't want other people's animals to come and forage on your land. So
or your security
in general. So fencing might be one of those things that you need to do, especially if you have tribal land. Then the next thing is now you want to start building.
Yes. So now you want to start building, then you go, okay, well, great, right? I'm just going to bring a bunch of cement and sand to my area, but you don't have water. Well, how are you going to make cement and concrete mixes and all that? So that actually means you need water. Water is actually one of the first things you really actually have to get. I would actually argue that you need water way before you need electricity. Because if you want to start building anything, if you want to build anything, you need water first, right? To get that area set up. So now the question is, where are you going to get your water? If it's a place where there's no servitude, right? What do you really do?
There's no dam.
There's no dam. Right? There's no river. What do you really do? You might have to get a borehole in there. That costs quite a bit. Just off the bat, a borehole could easily cost you 30,000 rands. And the more water that is required, like basically, they'll drill. The deeper you go, they might drill, and then they say, well, there's still no water. We haven't hit the level yet. So you might have to pay even more to get more meters and more meters. So that 30,000 could go all the way up to 80 or 90, depending on whatever the situation is. So you really also have to know, where do I get my water?
Absolutely. So once you have that sort of thought out, now you want to set up a living structure. So if you are building before you even get to the land, then maybe there's really no need for you to set up like a structure to live in. But most people, they buy their land and they want to go live there. Are you going to set up a tent? Is your family going to be okay in a tent? These are things you need to think about when you start building. Are you just going to build a big one-roomed house and then you all live in there while you're building? So think about those costs in terms of moving onto the land. If it's a tent, now you need to go buy a comfortable, good tent so that your family can live there and set up the what do you call it? How do you say a nice word for toilet?
Lavatory.
That makes it so much better. I get a lavatory on there. I use the push. I don't know. Just start thinking about your living situation, because that could really make or break your experience on the homestead.
Absolutely. So like a very good investment is the structure that you're going to be staying in, because what you're going to start finding is that when you're actually on that place, you're going to have difficult days, right? So having a nice-ish place for you where you feel at least comfortable is so important for your mental well-being, right? To push you. Now, what is also very helpful to understand is that we're not saying get onto the place and then build a triple duper double suplex, right? What you actually need is just make sure you have a nice structure. You can keep it simple. You can keep it affordable. You can have a single room or two rooms, a place where you can cook and, use the bathroom and so on. Make it look nice. Make it look really beautiful. I think we've seen some homesteaders who've also, they bought a Wendy house. So it's like a bit of like a little log house, and then they've extended it and they built like toilet and so on.
And the bed,
it's very small. Like it's very small. I think Coqueville have one like that as well. It's so beautiful. It's very small, but it's like it looks so nice. And, so basically the advice that we're also putting is that you don't have to go all the way, right? Like very, very big and upscale. You can keep it very simple. You can try to keep it affordable, but you can grow after that. Like maybe, once you've settled down a few years, you can then,
grow
expand.
From there, And then the next thing is electricity. This is not like a necessity from the get-go, but now you need to really start thinking about it. Are you going to get electricity pulled from ESCOM or city of whatever city that you live in?
So this one is also quite important to note, right? So while you're doing your research, also do this as well, because if you get a very remote place, there's a possibility that there is no connection. So what they would have to do then is there's a possibility you call up Eskom or, your provider, then they will say, well, you are basically 2 kilometers away from the nearest, pole or so. So what they would have to do is then basically, put like poles for you and basically bring that in. But from what I've heard in certain cases is that it can cost you money to actually request to actually, have that service. So so you could find yourself putting out money to basically be connected to that grid, right? Otherwise you could say, well, I don't care about Eskom and screw that, right? Good for you, right? Then you could say, well, solar, but we also know the investment that solar requires. So you could possibly be looking at 80,000 rands just for a basic system, to power maybe your basic fridge and lights and so on. And that could still be a little bit on the small side. So once you want to do, stoves and things like that, you would have you need much more.
Absolutely. So maybe when you now start thinking about solar, maybe think about your lights and smaller devices like your laptops, your phone, charging, etc. You really don't need a TV on the homestead. You have so much work to be watching TV, but now think about your stove. Are you going to have a gas stove? That's a cost. It's not that expensive, but think about it. Or are you going to get one of those coal stoves, which are really great, especially if you want to bake and do all the other things. So your solar system is really going to depend on you, but honestly there are lots of alternatives for cooking, and you can do a bit of hand washing. It doesn't hurt anybody. You hang your clothes on the outside to air dry. You don't need a dryer. Like all these things can be substituted, especially if you're on a homestead. So don't stress too much about the electrical part. Get a solar system that's going to be enough for those for that moment, and then grow from there. And also we're starting to see other options for like paying monthly for these solar systems. So look into that as well, because having a solar system for about 2,300 rands a month could be okay for you. Then you just keep paying for it until you save up the amount of money that you need to get your own system. Then they can come take their system away and stuff like that. So that now becomes your responsibility as well to like look and research and understand what are the terms of and conditions of getting that set up for you on your homestead, so that you don't get into agreements that you cannot get out of. And then the next one is buying where there's already a structure. So this one is something that this is what we decided to do. There was already a structure here. So the first benefit is obviously if you go this route and you decide you want to finance, the bank is more likely going to say, okay, fine, here's your 100%. Here's your 100%, because we know you're going to be living on there. They will ask you, were you going to be living there? You'll say yes, and then you'll be like, okay, great, fine, we can give you the 100%. Then that's really great. Now you already have a structure. You have a place where you at least can sleep and can move in. Like first day wasn't the most comfortable sleep of ours. The first week was not great at all. I think the first month in general was not great, because there were a lot of things that we needed to get done, from the floors of the bathroom, the walls. Everything was not so great. So those are things that you need to think about. You need to make the place a little bit more comfortable. The floors were oozing water because we are on a slope, so all the rain coming from the mountain, it comes onto our floor. So those are some of the things we needed to think about, but we needed a place to stay because we are working and we needed to move in, so that was perfect for us. That
was great for us. But then now like this one is a lot more like you require costs up front, because now unlike buying just a plain piece of land, right? Like this one has a house, a structure, it has got water, electricity, things like that. It's already put in. So now when you're trying to buy it from someone, whether cash or financing, whatever decision you make, right, the cost will be a bit higher. So that is going to be the downside, right? Now the benefit though of this one is that the costs are now going to most likely be linked to renovations, right? You're going to move in and you're going going to go, okay, well, I don't like that. Maybe let me build more, let me add more of that. Let me fix more of that, right? It's unlike, getting a piece of land where you're going to build from scratch, learn everything from scratch, where you're going to have to bring more resources in. So this one is a little bit, less resource intensive, like right now. But then, a lot of the work is still renovation. But it's also really important to understand that it still doesn't mean like it's a perfect route, right? Because, no matter how well and diligent you are when you come to view the place, right? Like what happens is that you're going to come during the day, you're going to look at the site, you're like, oh, okay, well, nothing looks like it's falling apart and everything. But as Audrey said, right, once you stay in that place and it starts to rain, do the roofs leak? Like some of the things you won't necessarily see, or the moisture rising, at the sides, like underneath the floor or on the sides of the house and things like that. Like some of the things you will only start to notice when you've actually been there for a long period of time.
Absolutely. And just because you have a structure doesn't mean it's perfect. We actually followed Overberg Homestead on YouTube, and we followed their journey from when they actually first went to check out their property after the person had moved out, after they struggled actually to get the person that was living in there to get out. And that becomes your responsibility. Hey, once you buy a property and there's someone living there and they decide they don't want to move out, you have to make them move out. So make sure before you even go onto your land that there are no squatters on your land. That's very important.
And I mean, they had trashed that complete place. Like it was just absolutely horrible. So that could be another thing as well, is that you could buy a place and maybe previously the place is trashed, or maybe it's not in a really good condition. So you could actually now just find yourself, you're in a very big hole, right? Because like to get it fixed basically is almost like building a whole new structure altogether. So that's the other thing as well. And this is where the philosophy where some people have of saying, well, I'd rather just build it from scratch, might make a little bit more sense.
Exactly. Absolutely. Because I mean, with Overberg Homestead, they had to move in, they fixed the one area which they had to camp in a little bit while they're fixing the other areas. Like, please just go check them out. We'll also link their YouTube channel here. So we are only sharing South African homesteaders so that you get an understanding of how it really works in South Africa. But their journey is very interesting. Just because there is a house there, it doesn't mean it's perfect. And then now we have the option of renting.
So this one is an option that a lot of people don't really talk about, but the thing is, it's always available and it's always there, right? So remember, like when we speak with a lot of people go, okay, well, we want to own the land, we really want to have our like ownership, and it's really our piece of land. But the thing is, you watched our first video, watched our second video, we asked you, right, should you even be homesteading? And you said, yes, I want to definitely do homesteading. And then we said, okay, well, what do you want to do with it, right? And then you say, well, I have a plan, this is what I want to do. So now the question is, right, the goal that you want to achieve, do you really need to own the land, right? Like, do you need the land to really achieve your goal? So for example, if your goal in the future is just to move around, like country hop and everything, maybe you don't really need to own a piece of land right now.
Maybe it's just a phase in your life that you want to explore. You know, you want to grow a little bit of food. You want to see how it is to have chickens, how it is to have goats, and try your hand at other things. Maybe you don't necessarily want to put your roots there. We know that buying property is a big commitment, so think about renting as an option, and it's absolutely worth it. But what are the disadvantages or advantages of that now?
Okay, so now an issue with renting out as well is that because you don't really own the place, now you do have limitations with regards to what you can do on the piece of land, right?
So much rain coming.
There's gonna be lots of rain. I think for like the 2-3 days from now, it's gonna be all rain.
Let's hope this is still audible, because it's really loud. You can go on. Sorry.
So no, it's okay. So the thing is, you can't necessarily just do whatever you want on someone else's piece of land, right? And then also the other thing is that when you make modifications, right, you can't just wake up and just leave with the modification. So if you build like a structure, you can't just when you're about to leave, you say, well, I'm gonna just pull out. I'm gonna pull this whole building. So like that will be something that you have to be cognizant of. Like you might have to move in, and if you do have to make modifications, you might have to make immovable modifications, because if you make certain you're gonna have to make movable modification, right? If you make immovable modifications, they belong to the property owner.
So ask about those options. We know that Good Luck Homestead from on our Instagram, they mentioned that they've been renting their land for close to a decade now. I'm not certain, but go check them out. They actually have an Airbnb on that property, and their property is just amazing. So go check them out and see, and even ask, because I'm telling you, homesteaders are the most amazing, incredible people we have ever met, and they're going to tell you everything, even the cost of things. So do not be afraid to ask. They share information. Yeah, so you can rent out the place. Some people, they can't live on their land and they just want someone to occupy it. So you could get a good deal where, actually I saw on a post somewhere where someone was actually looking for a person to come and just live on their land and just take care of it because they needed taken care of. That was it. That was the condition. Don't trash it, just take care of it. So look for those options, talk to the people, and a lot of the people are willing to let you rent out the place. Yeah,
I mean, if you decide like this is an option available for you, we would advise, maybe look at one with a structure. It will just make things a little bit more easier for you. You can easily move in, you can have that place set up, and like you can try your hand on homesteading, because moving in and, having to start building and, putting up, structures there might just be a little bit more difficult.
Exactly, So look at all the options. I think these videos are really trying to make you think about all the things that are needed, because we didn't get that opportunity to brainstorm and think and look around and ask questions, because we just liked the lifestyle, then we just went into it, and then we realized, oh snap, this is supposed to be our financial journey, but now it's also just homesteading in general, and it's like it's a whole different idea of what we thought it was going to be. So think about those things, and then next week we are really going to go into a little bit of how you can finance things on the homestead, because they do get pricey. So we're going to talk about
the businesses that you can actually start, how to monetize your homestead, and like certain businesses, like do they work, do they not, like what are the feedback that we're getting from certain homesteaders regarding it, and
exactly. And also we are going to touch on understanding your market when you move to a homestead, and also those are some of the things you have to think about before even buying your land.
Absolutely.
And also we are going to talk about if it's worth it to have a full-time job while homesteading.
So we hope you liked today's video. We hope, please share, like, subscribe, comment down below. Are there other things that you would like us to talk about, or do you actually think that there are other things that we should have included on this video? But we were trying to address the 3 really main components when you move into your homestead today. And we'll see you again next time.
Bye.